What's going on, folks? It is I once again, Brandon the Broker. It's a beautiful, windy, starting to kind of snow day. A little sick. Once again, I am in bed. And since I'm in bed, guess what we're going to do? Another video. 49er fans deserve better than Levi Stadium. To be totally honest with you, this is me telling you as a disclaimer, I am a Seahawks fan. And because I am a Seahawks fan, they deserve this stadium. This is the stadium they deserve. But I am going to come at this as a architect student and a little bit of a geography fan. So let's get into this.
In the realm of contemporary NFL stadiums, the scrutiny surrounding Levi's Stadium is unmistakable. In stark contrast to the sleek, cutting-edge designs characterizing modern sports complexes, Levi's Stadium seems to have missed the mark. Venues like SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, and Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta all represent the evolving model of modern design and fan accommodation within the world's richest league. Yet despite opening 5 years after the NFL was introduced to gems like Jerry World, Levi's Stadium remains an unenthusiastic representation of the 49ers' departure from Candlestick Park. Don't get it mistaken though. The move out of San Francisco, although deservedly scrutinized, was warranted from the organization's perspective, though 49ers fans may share a different opinion on that. Regardless, what should have been a celebrated addition to the sports landscape has become a symbol of disappointment for 49ers fans that's been marked by an oversight of stadium design, poor planning, and a slew of location-related issues that have alienated the fan base.
Okay, now just a hidden little gem. I have been to this stadium for something, but it wasn't in the summer. It was more in the fall, winter time. Fall, winter, spring. So this stadium at that point is not that bad of a place, but we will get into why this is a bad place to put a stadium.
Let's dive into that. And while you're here, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. The decision in 2014 to move the 49ers from their long-standing home at Candlestick Park to Levi's Stadium was without a doubt a pivotal moment.
And the San Francisco 49ers from a very windy Candlestick Park here in San Francisco, California.
Candlestick, though known for its gusty winds and aging infrastructure, held an abundance of memories for the team and its fans since 1971. The stadium was the backdrop for the 49ers' most triumphant years in franchise history. Under the leadership of legendary figures like head coach Bill Walsh and quarterback Joe Montana, the team achieved remarkable success, including 5 Super Bowl championships in just over a decade.
Fun fact, as a kid, I was actually a Joe Montana fan and a Steve Young fan and a Jerry Rice fan. So naturally, I was a 49ers fan as a child. But here's another fun fact. I grew up in Chicago. I know. Burn me at the stake, folks.
Montana, along with Jerry Rice, Steve Young, and Ronnie Lott, not only etched their names into NFL history, but also contributed to Candlestick Park's aura as a hallowed ground for football excellence. Father Time waits for no one though, and the need for a modern stadium prompted a debate over a new home. But the burning question remains, where would it be built? Despite prior attempts at building a new NFL stadium at the same location, San Francisco and the 49ers constantly struggled to find the right deal. The 49ers wanted a good amount of public funding to support the cost to build, but with the city's desire for a more mixed-use development, there were competing interests on what should be built at Candlestick Point, since the city wasn't eager to fill all that land with just an expensive stadium.
Scott 1000 helps prevent clogs by dissolving 10 times faster in water. Get more with Scott.
The world ain't set up for the honest man to succeed. America's a hustle.
San Francisco had their own ideas of what the land should be used for around the stadium, but the NFL team wanted a more exclusive, football-friendly environment. High construction costs and dense development meant that San Francisco had very few alternatives to offer the 49ers. Hunters Point Naval Shipyard site was presented as an alternative from the city, but that was a total disaster since the land was heavily polluted with toxic waste. In fact, it's one of the most polluted areas.
Well, it is San Francisco, and now I'm gonna say it like this: if you offered me a site like that, yeah, I'll probably look at you sideways on what you really no, I'll leave. I would leave if that's what you offer me.
The entire country. So instead of cleaning up the area in the hopes that the team wouldn't play on toxic soil, the 49ers refused to entertain developing at this location altogether. Public transportation and parking also became a key emphasis for the team, but the city never really addressed this in their proposals. The 49ers wanted their fans to easily commute to games while also tailoring effectively, the true NFL way. Now combine everything mentioned with San Francisco's horrid history of neglecting maintenance concerns, the 49ers' trust towards the city was pretty well non-existent. But arguably worse, 49ers fans didn't trust the team's owners. The DeBartolo and York family, originally from Ohio, were always considered strangers to San Francisco since they acquired the 49ers in 1977. They are constantly a talking point amongst 49ers fans, for scandalous or football-related reasons. But those fans point out the fact that this family, who came from the Midwest without any sentimental ties to the West Coast, never had any true intent to strike up a deal with the city. That's when the South Bay area offered exactly what they were looking for. Without any appealing deals from San Francisco, the team turned southward towards Santa Clara. The city...
Now, let's be a little bit honest. I don't think anybody really trusts their owners. I think there's very few teams that really trust the owner of the team. I think Boston may trust their owner. I think that might be a little bit waning. That's about it. Everyone else just looks at the owners like, geez, what are you doing? I mean, okay, at least in Seattle, look, we know we're going to have a winning record, but we're probably either not going to make the playoffs or we're going to get bounced in the wild card. By the way, these are the same people that own the Trailblazers, and we're chanting sell the team. So, to catch 22 there. Uh-oh, what happened? Hold on, folks. We got to go back. Let's go back. Okay, where were we? We were somewhere. There we go. Now we gotta sit through this.
Continental Ultra Clean removes more in one wipe. Wow!
Anyone with $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans may qualify for help from National Debt Relief. Getting started is easy, and the process is already helped.
Head southward towards Santa Clara, the city where its head offices and training facilities have been situated since the late 80s. Santa Clara is also at the heart of Silicon Valley, the tech capital of the world and one of the wealthiest pockets of the entirety of the United States. To the 49ers, Santa Clara's proximity to tech giants presented an enticing opportunity for corporate partnerships, sponsorships, and wealthy fans to attend games. The allure of an improved...
Listen, I'm gonna say it straight up. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. If they offered something, then take it. If the place you're standing isn't offering you anything, take what you can get. Especially if there's something more that can come out of it.
Revenue stream from the region's deepest pockets was undeniable. However, this geographic shift, as great as it seemed on paper, massively affected the fan base. From the get-go, the leap from San Francisco to Santa Clara brought with it an unintended yet predictable consequence: the estrangement of a loyal fan base. The physical distance of over an hour's drive from those coming from San Francisco created a palpable gap between the team and the city that had been an inseparable part of its identity since the 1940s. This detachment was further amplified by the stadium's architectural misalignment. A design that was originally conceived for a San Francisco location remained unchanged when plans emerged for a move to Santa Clara. What's good for here will be good for there. Nice and easy, right? Not really. Santa Clara...
Now, this has happened before. As a matter of fact, this has happened with the Las Vegas Raiders. The design that they used for Allegiant Stadium was originally for if they were to move to Los Angeles. But it worked because it was a dome, translucent roof, and also the fact that it's almost similar climates. Well, not really, but almost. Therefore, it worked. Because it's a dome, it worked better. If this was San Diego versus the Bay, or the Bay in LA, not the Bay in LA, the Bay in San Francisco versus the Bay in Tampa, it might work just a little bit as well, but this is very different. Inland versus the Bay is totally different weather.
Is a noticeably warmer city than San Francisco, and when the 49ers made their move to Levi's Stadium, the geographical adjustment posed unexpected challenges. The stadium's orientation, with end zones pointing northwest and southeast respectively, meant that the eastern grandstand, housing a significant chunk of the seating, is directly exposed to the searing sunlight. Meanwhile, 100% of the hotel-styled corporate suites that are completely stacked on the west side of the stadium are all sheltered from the sun no matter what time of day the 49ers are playing. While this design was allegedly meant to bring the fans closer together, there's no doubt that placing the executive suites to the preferable side of the stadium was intentional, as well as being a bad look on the stadium's designer. Small measures to minimize effects from the sun have been taken, such as reducing water bottle prices and deploying a cooling crew to distribute sunscreen. But these initiatives have proven to be inadequate against the sweltering heat that's especially prominent during early season games when temperatures are at their highest point. In hindsight, the initial plans with the stadium could have worked, since the stadium was intended to sit at Candlestick Point where the heat wouldn't hit nearly as hard and the gusts of wind would act as a cooling method for fans. But the rushed attitude of taking a design intended for 40 miles up the road just doesn't fly in Santa Clara. Even the gap in the northwest corner of the stadium was meant to provide an up-close view of San Francisco's skyline, exposing the flawed copy-paste approach by the 49ers owners, leaving fans to bask in the heat without even a proper view of the city the team is based in. But couldn't a simple roof or overhanging structure be built to protect the fans? Simply put, no. And it's because of the stadium's proximity to this airport.
Does Levi's Stadium increase the hazard to airplanes flying into San Jose Mineta International Airport? Some pilots tell us yes.
A massive planning area.
These are things you also do need to think about when you are building a city or you're planning a city. You have to think of how it's not just going to be used in that moment, but you have to think of how that one building affects everything around it. And a stadium is going to affect airports. Bridges affect airports. Highways affects airports. Everything is going to affect each other in some way. A house that you build 10 miles away from this stadium is going to affect that house and that stadium in some way. You just have to have the foresight to know how this is going to affect that and how this stadium is going to be affected by that airport and how that airport is going to affect that stadium.
With Levi's Stadium is that it sits directly in the flight path of planes landing at San Jose Mineta International Airport. With the stadium sitting under 2.5 miles from the runway, the height restrictions in the surrounding area prevent the 49ers from building any structure to cover the fans. The team has been about as vocal on the issue as its own supporters, pretty much telling them to tough it out during the early stages of the regular season, with the team's hands being tied. Coincidentally enough, even aviators detest the stadium, since the lights from the grandstands and video boards are drawing complaints from the pilots passing by Levi's Stadium when landing or taking off. Despite all these drawbacks though, Levi's Stadium isn't a dump. In fact, in terms of its technology, it's considered to be pretty innovative despite not looking grand and modern like complexes belonging to the Cowboys or the Falcons. Among other features, the ground is equipped with high-speed Wi-Fi and a dedicated mobile app to stay connected, order concessions from your seat, and access real-time game stats.
Very honest, accurate, and true. It's not a dump. No matter what, I may not like the team, but this place is not a dump. If just technologically and concession wise, I will put it up there in the top 10% of sports stadiums in the United States. And that's all of them. You know, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever. And that's also with some colleges put in, with some universities put in. It's not a dump.
At the time of its opening, technology like this around a 70,000 seat stadium was a rarity. But with all this advancement in certain areas for their fans, it's the traditional experiences that are being ignored by the team, all for a larger runway of opportunity on the balance sheet with potential sponsors around the corner from the ground. And to add fuel to the fire, the area sits in a soulless neighborhood that's not even remotely close to where fans live, making the pre-match and post-match experience a long-winded journey. As previously mentioned, being situated more than 40 miles away from major urban centers like San Francisco has presented one of the most prominent challenges for 49ers fans. This geographical distance has made game day travel more cumbersome and time-consuming for those coming in from the big city. While there is a Valley Transportation Authority light rail station nearby, the public transit network is not as extensive or well connected as that of San Francisco. This limitation has made it less convenient for fans who rely on buses, trains, or other forms of public transportation, with wait times to get into transit cars reaching 30 minutes after some games.
Once again, as I've already said, when you're planning projects like this, you have to take everything into account. How this is going to affect transportation, how it's going to affect the movement of people, the movement of animals, the movement of even weather. Yes, weather can be influenced by a lot of things. Look at the skyscrapers. It does affect, the weather affects the skyscrapers, and the skyscrapers can also affect the weather. Burj Khalifa. So yes, when you are planning stadiums, you also got to plan how are people going to get there that's not going to tax the system already. Sometimes you got to expand lanes. Sometimes you have to add in public transportation. But this is a far cry away from where the base of its fans live. So now you kind of got to think, okay, the only thing we can either do is widen the roads, or create a high-speed rail or add a rail stop, which I'm not sure. And that wouldn't be a public, that would probably be more of a private affair.
Parking at Levi's Stadium has posed another major challenge. With limited parking available and high demand on game days, congestion around parking lots has become commonplace. Not only does this lead to longer wait times and more frustration for fans, but it also results in additional costs due to expensive parking fees. Plus, besides the theme park a few steps away from the stadium, the lack of shops contribute to the soullessness in the area that's filled with suburban homes and corporate offices, which means fans only come down to 49ers games then leave right away. This maximizes congestion when leaving the venue.
And this is part of the reason why a lot of teams are starting to ask for a village, like a baseball village or a basketball village, like almost like Wrigleyville, the area around, except that's not really a baseball village. That's actually that's an actual neighborhood. And it's been a neighborhood. Wrigleyville's been Wrigleyville long before the Atlanta Battery came along and changed how everyone looks at the space around their stadium. Even Kansas City, they're looking at a baseball village and a football village. If they break those two up, if they break up the Truman complex, that's what they're going to want downtown, is a baseball village. Or if one of the teams leave, the other one is going to want a village in the place of the other stadium. And it brings in more money, but it keeps people there longer, because that means people now have a time to dissipate out. Instead of everyone leaving all at once, now you're going to spend a little bit more time in the restaurants, at the bars. You're going to spend time at the team shops. They're going to put movie theaters in there. I believe LA Live, I think they have like an IMAX there or something like that. I forget what they have. I know they got the LA Live bar there. So it does help with traffic. Let's get this commercial.
Hey Meta, what is this artwork?
Comedian by Mauricio Catalan, worth $6.2 million.
What?
Games, then leave right away. This maximizes congestion when leaving the venue. At this point, we know that the location of Levi's Stadium is convenient for the owners and to some extent the team. The stadium was built to be 40 miles north, closer to the city center, and clearly favors those watching games from a suite. And while it may sit in a lifeless area, it's still pretty convenient for rubbing shoulders with corporate players. It might be naive to think a new stadium in this day and age would never try to cater to those with corporate interests, but there's little room for excuses by the 49ers and its owners with how blatantly they've alienated the fan base. But with all of this in mind, has this cluster of flaws and drawbacks made any impact inside the stadium whatsoever? Not one bit. While the 49ers' journey from Candlestick Park to Levi's Stadium marked a notable shift in the narrative surrounding the team, the bleachers have remained full. The anticipation of a modernized fan experience in a faraway stadium stole the headlines and drew criticism, giving way to division and discontent. Yet the team has averaged an attendance above the stadium's capacity nearly every year since moving to Santa Clara. Fans may call it a billion-dollar blunder, but the bet to move the 49ers away from San Francisco is working in favor of the York family. Maybe.
Hey, listen, as much as I do not like I'm more at the crossroads of I'm not one of their fans, and I enjoy watching them go through this, but I also understand if they move the Seattle Seahawks out of downtown Seattle, and let's say they moved them to Sumner or Snoqualmie or Issaquah, or hell, let's just be honest. If they moved them to Spokane, I'm gonna be pissed as well. Because do you know how bad traffic is? If you don't know how bad Seattle traffic can get, let me help you out here. Let's take in Seattle traffic. Seattle traffic technically starts in Salem, Oregon, and also starts in Vancouver, British Columbia. That's where it starts. The end.
Because Californians can adapt to the heat, or because only 8 or 9 home games in a season is worth making the effort for. Unlike baseball, the demand for NFL football far outweighs the supply, and finding poor attendance records across the league is a rarity. Sports franchises in North America will move out of state at a drop of a hat, and 9 times out of 10, the fans will still show up. When contrasted with sports in Europe, where the team belongs where it began, any minor change will see a significant uproar from its loyal supporters. It's a reminder that just like the rest of the NFL's home fields, there's little to romanticize about. Levi's Stadium is a corporate sandbox dressed as a football stadium, which is something fandom shouldn't be about. But it's the reality of the sporting world today, and 49ers fans will be calling it home for the next several decades. It serves as a stark reminder that even the most well-intentioned decisions on the balance sheet can yield unintended outcomes. And in the larger tapestry of professional sports, it stands as a testament to the far-reaching impact of missteps and miscalculations. But when fans continue to show up in droves, expect these patterns to continue. If you made it this far, thanks.
Very true. One thing I will say is if I was the architect on this project, the first thing I would have did was I would have actually redesigned this building. I would have completely redesigned it, probably, or if I couldn't do a redesign, shift it over. Because you got to remember something. We have the technology to where we can make glass to where it darkens just enough to where you can still see the game, but the sun doesn't penetrate through. There's nothing I can do for those fans, especially if I know I cannot build like any kind of awnings or anything for them. But if nothing else, I would have asked, can we move this over a couple blocks? That way we're off the flight path and we can build whatever we want. And I think that's what it is. I don't think it's the height restriction everywhere else in the city. I think it's a height restriction on the flight path. And if you just move off the flight path, then we could put a dome in. We could put those awnings in. You might look like a soccer stadium, but it's better to look like a 70,000 seat soccer stadium that we can use rather than a 70,000 stadium where half the stadium is angry at you. You don't have a view of anything. And people are still going to use it. Anyway, go like and subscribe to Mapify. And by the way, please like and subscribe to me too.